I'm Nancy Daly, Water Resources Manager with Wake County Environmental Services, and this afternoon I wanted to tell you a little about the different wastewater and well permit options that are available to applicants, and also focus in on some of the recent steps we've taken to streamline the wastewater permitting process. Here's an overview of what we're going to discuss today. We'll provide an overview of what our current permitting timeline is and what that process, how that triggered us to look for some efficiencies in a resequenced wastewater permit. We'll review some of the different wastewater permit options that are available, and then some strategies that you as a customer can do to streamline the application process. So to better understand kind of where we're going, I'll just review what our current permit process is and identify some of those challenges. So currently the wastewater permit application is submitted with the building permit application. The challenge with this is that the wastewater permit requires several steps with the site evaluation, including a soils evaluation and design layouts. And this therefore can hold up the building permit approval process. The building permit could actually be turned around in 10 days, but the wastewater permit cannot consistently be turned around in 10 days due to all the additional field evaluations that are required. And so, again, with the current process, while the wastewater application is submitted with the building permit, this building permit would have the final building permit. And then while that's ready to go, it would take an additional 27 days or more for wastewater staff to issue that final construction authorization. So the building permit could not move forward until the wastewater permit is complete. To address some of these concerns, Environmental Services has worked closely with planning development inspections on ways that we can streamline this process. And so one of the ways that we're doing this is allowing the applicants to submit the wastewater permit well in advance of the building application permit. And this is allowed through a preliminary site plan that would include a building envelope that would accommodate any proposed built-upon area, the house, the driveway, the deck, any proposed structures on the site. Once we have that, wastewater staff would then be able to go out and evaluate the site and ensure that there's enough drainage area and repair area for the septic system and issue an improvement permit. Once that final building footprint is finalized, customers can submit their application for the building permit, and wastewater staff would be able to turn around a construction authorization within 10 days as long as that building footprint falls completely within the building envelope. So this is a picture of what that revised timeline would look like. Again, the applicant could submit the wastewater application 60 or more days in advance of the building permit application. Once that final building footprint is finalized, the building permit submitted, and both the wastewater and the building permit could be turned around in 10 days. So there's several different options that are available to applicants for wastewater as well as well permits. So we just wanted to provide an update to make sure everybody's aware of the different options that are available and so that they can choose the right permit for the project. These are the different permits that we're going to talk about today, and again, we'll talk about some of the benefits as well as the drawbacks associated with each so that customers are more informed when applying for the permit. So one of the permit options that's available to customers is the engineered option permit. In this particular permit, the engineer submits the complete design for the septic system, and Environmental Services has very minimal role in this process. The county simply reviews to make sure the application process and the application packet is complete, and if so, the permit would be approved in 15 days or less. Some of the drawbacks or things to consider if you pursue this option is that the owner needs to hire an engineer for all future maintenance and inspections for this system, and the county doesn't perform any QA/QC in this process. Engineered flow reduction permit is another option available in which the engineer would submit a proposal that incorporates reduced flow fixtures that will allow the applicant to accommodate additional bedrooms or additional built upon area due to the lower flow. Some of the challenges with this, or drawbacks to consider, is that in order for this to be effective, those low flow fixtures will have to be maintained. Any deviation could cause premature failure of the system and also would be non-compliance with the operation permit. The licensed soil science evaluation is another permit option that's available. In this situation, the licensed soil scientist would perform the complete soil evaluation on the site and submit that information and delineate the initial and repair areas for the septic system. Again, environmental services would have minimal role in this process, and it would simply be to review and make sure that the system met all required setbacks. For applicants that have multiple lots that they would like to get permitted at a single time, one of the options that might be worth considering is Subdivision Blitz. In this case, the applicant would contact the team lead for the region of interest and request the Subdivision Blitz option. In that case, 3 to 5 environmental service staff would go to the lots, evaluate the lots. We would have a licensed soil scientist on site to evaluate and help streamline and turn around those permits in a much more efficient manner. So we've talked a lot about the wastewater permits, and we wanted to highlight some of the different options for new wells. Any new building or house construction in Wake County is required to have a potable water source. One of the options, of course, would be to drill a private well, and this is a good option if you're outside of municipal limits and much more cost effective than tapping into some of the public water supply lines. Some of the challenges or things that you need to think about when you're applying for a private well, though, is that there is some time associated with water quality testing. This could take 3 to 5 weeks. And part of our process, we're going to go out, inspectors will evaluate the location, identify any construction requirements, as well as any water quality testing requirements associated with that well. In eastern Wake County, 1 in 5 wells are expected to need treatment for naturally occurring radiologicals, and so that needs to be considered in that portion of the county. And then it's always important to remember that any well owner is responsible for the future maintenance of that particular well. If there is already an existing well on site, builders can choose to apply for a permit to use the existing well. The process is very similar in that environmental service staff would go out, inspect the well, and make sure that that well is up to code. It would also identify any water quality testing requirements. Again, there you need to consider the time associated with any water quality test that could take 2 to 3 weeks. And while this may avoid some cost associated with drilling a new well, there could be some additional cost associated with bringing that well up to current standards. And also, it's important to remember, in order for the certificate of occupancy to be approved, all water quality standards must be met. So I wanted to highlight a few steps that the applicant can take in order to streamline the permit process as well. So apply as early as possible, and again, with the resequence wastewater permit application process, that allows you to apply 60 or more days in advance of the building permit. So you don't have to have the final building permit ready to go, but you can start that process. Prepare the site for inspection before the field staff get out there to assess. Ensure your fees are paid. And for private wells, install the well as early as possible and request that the wellhead inspection is as soon as the well is fully operational. Some key takeaways to remember with the permitting process. Remember that the wastewater permitting, you can apply in advance of the building permit now, and that should streamline the application. There are a lot of options available, so keep that in mind depending on what your project needs are, and apply as early as possible. If you have questions, we want to hear from you, so we've got a couple different ways that you can contact us. You can contact the Environmental Service Support line for questions regarding application, the permit portal, or questions on fees associated with different permits. We also have set up a wastewater information specialist line and the associated email address, wastewater@wakegov.com. If you have questions on septic design, setbacks, or operation and maintenance of your septic system, reach out to the wastewater information specialist and we can make sure that you get your question answered. Appreciate your time today, and if you have any questions, reach out to us. We're here.